each week.
Question number 11, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr Speaker, this question is to the Minister for Māori Affairs and asks, does he consider water to be an economic resource for Māori? Hello.
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Māori Affairs, among other things, yes.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Does he agree with the Māori Council that water shouldn't be used without the permission of hapu? And if so, how does he reconcile this stance with that of the Prime Minister who has stated, and I quote him, no one can own water?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister, perfectly reconcilable. There are rights and interests in water that have been reflected in legislation passed through this House on many occasions over the last few years, and that is entirely consistent with having legitimate rights and interests, and ownerships are relevant.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Did the PM assure him that Māori will be given preferential treatment over non-Māori in respect of water rights, or was last night's meeting with the PM a fulfilment of the old Māori proverb of the Māori sprat being swallowed by the blue shark?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
Well, on behalf of the Minister of Māori Affairs, that was a meeting between party leaders for which there is no ministerial responsibility.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Does he agree with that Māori and all other New Zealanders are entitled to a clear and coherent statement on the fundamental principles that apply to water, rather than the multiple, varied and changing statements that the government has issued to suit particular audiences?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Māori Affairs, of course they're entitled to that, and that's what they get. And what people are entitled to know is that Māori have legitimate rights and interests in water, and that has been reflected in the work program of this government, and in particular the Minister of Treaty Negotiations over the last 3.5 years, and I might add previous administrations.
The Honourable Shane Jones.
To the Minister of Māori Affairs. Why did he believe that the Prime Minister's comments about the Waitangi Tribunal and water claims were, and I quote, an insult to all of us?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Māori Affairs, because at the time, as so often happens with the press, half the story was printed, not the full story.
The Honourable Shane Jones.
To the Minister of Māori Affairs, does the Minister agree that his meeting with the Prime Minister shows that for him, blood is not thicker than water?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Māori Affairs, it's a shame that member didn't listen to the earlier answer, because that was a meeting between party leaders for which there is no ministerial responsibility.
Question, I beg your pardon, Te Roro Flavel.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Kia ora tātou. To the Minister, does he support the Land and Water Forum's recommend... Sorry.
Te Roro Flavel, start again.
Thank you. Does he support the Land and Water Forum's recommendations around co-governance, particularly that a non-statutory National Land and Water Commission should be established on a co-governance basis with iwi? And if so, what is he doing to progress this?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Māori Affairs, the Forum's work is ongoing, and ministers are yet to make decisions on the final form of any reforms. As to what the Minister is doing, the Minister always advocates for and supports what's in the best interests of Māori, which is why I know his Associate Minister thinks he's one of the best ministers of Māori Affairs this country's ever had, much better than the chap who held the job for a few months in 1991.
Question number 12, Louise Upson. Point of order, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.